Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video we'll be talking about ellipse, another icon in the drawing toolbars. Previous session we talked about circles. We talked about the information on circles. We said that center, radius, diameter, point on the circle and tangents. Those were the information that you might have it on the drawings and you will use them in the CAD software. Today we'll be talking about ellipse. As usual, we're gonna go over the information that one can read it on the drawing shapes, and then we're gonna use those information in AutoCAD to draw ellipse. Well, ellipse can be defined as a special circle. Well, how do we say special circle? If R1, if there is two radius you have it for ellipse, so there still you have a center. The information that we have it here, you have center, there is center. Besides center, you have two radius. So here we don't have diameter. We're not going to say diameter here. They're using radius. So the short radius, the long radius. We'll be talking about this a bit. And the end point, we have them here for each axis. Why? Because here you have two axes, we call them. The short side and the long side. If R1 is equal to R2, that's going to lead to a circle. So if you have something like this, if R1 equal to R2, it will be something like a circle. You can still draw circle using ellipse, but you know that there is no point to use ellipse for circle, since you have many options in drawing circle. Well, this small axis, they call secondary axis. This is called secondary axis. However, the long one we called primary axis. So we have two axes for ellipse. One of them the long, the other one is the short one. The long one we call primary axis, and the short one we call it secondary axis, or they call other axis. And in engineering drawing we call it secondary axis. However, in AutoCAD, yes, AutoCAD calls the main one, sometimes main axis or primary axis. For this one will say other axis. Now, what do you have to know? What do you have to know about those two axes? Remember, the way that the ellipse is stretched, it's on the primary axis. So if you tell AutoCAD this one is primary axis, the ellipse will look something like this. It will stretch around this. You have to be careful about this in AutoCAD. So the primary axis and the secondary axis. Now if you check the information that we might have on an ellipse, all of them lies on the axis. Center, which is common between the two axes. Then we have radius. Now in engineering drawing we call this one radius. AutoCAD call this one distance. So we're going to talk about this one, the way AutoCAD is accepting those information. Why we have to, the way that AutoCAD expressing those information is important. Yeah, for us we call them radius 1, radius 2, but AutoCAD may understand them as a distance between the center to the end of the axis, center to the end of the primary axis. Look, this is the way that AutoCAD expresses it. Distance between the center, so distance between the center till end of axis. Why? Because this is an axis, so this is end of axis we call it. Or whether from that side is the same thing, center to the end of axis. R2, which we call radius, the second radius, will be distance from center to the end of axis. Now in the books, they call this one AB. they will present them in this way: A and B. Distance, half distance of the, another way to express them, half distance of the primary axis, half distance of the secondary axis. Remember, primary axis start from here till here. This is primary axis. So primary axis is 2A, or 2R1 you call it, or 2A, whatever you call it. But the idea is to understand, or we can say this is 2R, R1. This is going to be the secondary axis. So the distance of the secondary axis will be 2B or 2R2. 2B, whatever you call them, doesn't matter. It means that it will be two of the, when expressing it in a drawing. Normally in the drawings, they express half. Sometimes they give full. But you have to understand which one will be used for the drawing. Or now you might say that drawing ellipse in hand will be easy. I guarantee you it will not be easy to draw ellipse in hand. And it's one of the complicated drawings that we will, if you had the chance, would show to you on hand drawing how we draw ellipse. But nowadays, due to those CAD software, we're not going to go through all those difficulties just to draw an ellipse. For those who are interested in ellipse, we can share it through the group. I mean, for the hand drawing, as if you want to do it on a paper by yourself, not a CAD software. What will help you to understand those concepts as well. Well, how this is clear: two main axes, a center and a distance. This distance we call radius. AutoCAD called distance from center to the end of the axis. So sometimes we may have full axis length. Then what other information we might have? End of axis points, we have them. End of axis point also, those can be used to draw an ellipse. So 4 points we have it: point 1, point 2 on the main axis, point 3, point 4 on the secondary axis. So total information: 4 points, center, 2 distance. It became 7 total information you might have on an ellipse. So which one will be used to draw? We're going to show it to you in AutoCAD. Now, let's first show you the icon. Where is it located? Now, in the draw toolbar, remember, whatever you want to draw will be in the draw group here. The toolbar here, we have it. Anything that will be used for drawing will be inside here in a 2D. Then under rectangle, you will see ellipse. Now, beside ellipse, there's an arrow, small drop down. You will open it, and you will see that we have 3 methods to draw ellipse. Center, the first method; axis end; and the other one is elliptical arc. We're not going to go for elliptical arc yet. Maybe when we start with arc, we'll come back to this one. But for now, we're going to just focus on those 2. This is not full ellipse. That's a part of ellipse. They're called elliptical arc. We're going to show it to you. We have different way to reach to this state without using this command. So we have center and axis end. So 2 methods to draw ellipse. The first one, center, what the name comes by center, it required center and 2 more information. So we need center and 2 more information. The two more information, one of them will be for the main axis, one of them for the secondary axis. So we're going to show it to you within those information. So for the center, we need center, the name of it center. So we need 1 information on the main axis, 1 information on the secondary axis. So on the main axis, what are the information I might have? Point 1, or the distance, or point 2. On the secondary axis, I might either give 0.3, 0.4, or the distance. So any of these three given, we might be able to use it with the center method. Let's gonna practice some to see how this works. Simple drawing. Remember again, some students they might say that those shapes are still not engineering drawing. We just want you to have the basics of drawing, then we will go for the shapes that are related to your department. Let's look at this ellipse we have it here. Now the dimension given here, this is on the secondary axis, half of the secondary axis, and this is half of the primary axis. Remember again, this drawing we don't have any coordinate system. So it means that you are free to draw anywhere within the screen. If there is a coordinate system, you have to start with that coordinate in order for the shape to be in a correct location. Remember what we said that again, why we need coordinate system. Sometimes you're working with different peoples that they're working on the same project, and all of those parts are linked together by coordinate. So I can work on my side, someone else, let's say I'm a civil engineer, we have a mechanical engineer, let's say we have a petroleum engineer, all of us working together on the same project. Maybe it's a big project, each of us responsible for one side. So when we're combining all of those parts together, if we all of us followed the same coordination that we had on the drawing, well, the shapes lies over each other. Why? Because we drew the things with coordinates. And it must be with coordinate. Why? Because we said that the location of those parts are restricted for a location. Or we said that in an industrial engineering, when you have machines in the plant, the location of those are important, especially when you're dealing with the bolt, the connection between the machine and the ground, they're very sensitive. So the location is supposed to be exact location so that when the machine came and they installed it over the location, it will fit to the bolting place. And many more applications we have it for those coordinates. So we said that on a drawing, if you don't have a coordinate, it means that the idea is not the location, it's just the shape. So here we don't have a coordinate. So what does it mean? It means that I am free to draw this shape anywhere within the screen. Well, let's say what's given here. Two distances given to me, and well, center can be it's given. How can I say it's given? Well, I'm not bound to any coordinate system, so I can click anywhere for the center. So I have center and one information on the secondary axis, one information on the primary axis. That will be enough to draw an ellipse, which we call center method. Now let's set up the drawing area. Well, the limit given here, if you're going to use that limit, we said that without limits we have other methods that we'll be able to use to set up the drawing area. Now I'm just gonna draw a line, simple, in order to see the length of this line. Oh, this is a bit big, so I'm gonna zoom in until I'll manage the screen. You can go with the limits, it's up to you, but if you know how to manage the screen without limit, it's much better. Now let's say the screen, it's enough for the drawing that I have it here. For this drawing, we're gonna activate, open the list, the drop down, then choose center. Now please do not blindly draw shapes in AutoCAD. I always says that follow the command line. The command line asks you specify center of ellipse. I told you that command line speaks to you in an order to understand what you have to enter. Well, specify center of ellipse. Yeah, we said that we don't have any coordinates somewhere. I'm free to click anywhere within the screen. Click anywhere within the screen. So remember, clicking means you inputting something to the drawing area. Imagine that you have a pencil in your hand and you're pressing it. That's the click. When you press, there will be a dot, yes? So that's basically what click. Limit your clicks so that you will not have any problem. So I'm gonna click. Remember, when I say click, it's left click. Now, as soon as I click, AutoCAD is asking me specify endpoint of access. Specify endpoint of access. Why? Because we said that it will ask us an information on the primary axis. Now here, axis, it can be this axis, it can be this axis here, yes? Both axes can be true. So we're gonna choose this axis. Now what do we have to do? We have to use the mouse to specify the direction of the axis. Let's say I'm gonna go following the main axis, then I'll go for the secondary axis. So I'm always following the same procedure so I will remember to not make any mistake. Now, if you leave it like this, if you leave the mouse in this manner, what will happen? It was something like this, yes? If I can draw the, see, it was something like this. If I leave the mouse like this and try to input something, if the mouse is here, and if I try input something, the shape will come out. I mean the ellipse, this will be the axis of the ellipse. Remember, the direction that you're specifying is going to be the direction for the axis. You have to be careful when you're drawing this ellipse. So let's come back to the shape. Look, if it is like this, so you know that where will be the axis. Since the shape that we have it here, the axes are horizontal and vertical, so you have to go over horizontal axis, and we can provide this 20. Now even though AutoCAD is asking what? Specify, you can read it from here, specify endpoint of axis. Endpoint of axis. So there is two ways to provide this information, whether the distance or the coordinate of the endpoint. So I have the center, I clicked on the center, then it will ask him specify endpoint of axis. Now in order to provide this endpoint of axis, you can provide what? You can provide this distance, or you can provide the coordinate of point 1 if you have it. Well, in this example, we have the distance, so I can input 20 there. Make sure the direction, it's the same direction of the main axis, you have it here. No need to go anywhere, so just simply I'm gonna type make horizontal, so make sure it's horizontal. We'll type 20, hit enter. Then it will ask you specify distance to other axis. It says specify distance to the other axis. So now we have to specify the distance for the other axis. Again, make sure it's vertical because you have a vertical distance there. So make sure it's vertical and you type the distance which is given to you as 10. Type 10, hit enter. And here you have the ellipse with distance from this point to this point supposed to be 40. Why? We used half of it, and then distance from this to this part here will be 20 because we used half, which was 10. Repeating again, we'll open here, we'll go for center because we had center and two distance. So will ask me specify center of ellipse. Since we don't have a coordinate system, I can click anywhere. doesn't matter. Then it will ask me specify endpoint of axis. I'll make it horizontal for the primary axis, and I'll type 20, standing for the distance from the center to the endpoint. Remember, center to the endpoint. This is what the input AutoCAD expecting from you. So 20 is the length from the center to the endpoint. Then I'll make it vertical to make sure that the distance I'm providing it goes for the vertical on the secondary axis, which is 10. Now you realize that AutoCAD does not define primary and secondary here. This method does not provide it. In previous version we had, sometime it was written primary axis, but I forgot which version was it. It was written primary axis, secondary axis. Now here it's not specifying the axis. So what does it mean? It means that I can do in a reverse manner. I'm clicking somewhere, I'll provide 10 first. On the secondary axis I can input 10, then I can input on the $20. I'll end up the same ellipse. Why? Because it didn't specify to me that primary or secondary, so it just simply axis. I provided this, the distance here with the other distance, will end up the same thing. But remember this one, for us in engineering drawing, when you do it on a paper, it matters. It matters which one is the main, which one is the secondary. Why? Because according to that one, we will set up the drawing centers. We will draw this by 4 center in a hand drawing. This is the first method that we will do it for ellipse. Now, before going to the next example or next method, let me just provide an information. Let's say if I have a coordinate of this point and a coordinate of this point, how would we be able to do this one? Let me just provide some coordinates here, some coordinate on this. Let's say the coordinate of this center will be 0, 0. So I'm going to provide 0, 0 for the coordinate of the center, 0, 0. And I'm providing this one to be minus 20, minus 20, 0. And coordinate of this one will be 0, 10, 0, 10. Let's say I don't have this dimension. I have coordinate here. I don't have this dimension. How will be able to draw with the coordinates here? It's still the same. We have a center, one information on the main axis, one information on the secondary axis. Now, first thing first is to set up the drawing area. We said this corner, when you say the x and y, this is the origin, yes? I will bring the origin to the center. So how to do it? First I'll zoom out until I'm checking the corner, until this will come out from the corner. Look, now I know where's the origin here. So I'm gonna press the wheel and hold it to adjust the screen. Then I'm gonna zoom in without losing the center. So I'll just go around it from the two sides. I'll try to zoom in with the wheel until I'll come. I know that this is the origin. I know this is the origin here. This is 0, 0. Why? Because I have coordinate system. So I need to see 0, 0. We'll start with ellipse. Center. Now, in this example, it's the same example, but I provided coordinate system. Since we have coordinate, I cannot click because I'm bound to a coordinate system. As we see, the center is 0, 0. So AutoCAD is asking me specify center of ellipse. I'll type 0, 0, hit enter. You can see it clicked on the origin. Now, it will ask me specify endpoint of axis. Now here, if you're using coordinate, you don't need to make it straight. Why? Since I'm using a coordinate by itself, it will manage the direction. So We're going to provide what? This coordinate, minus 20, 0. Remember, those are coordinate. We have to use hashtag. We call them absolute coordinate system. We use hashtag minus 20, comma 0. It doesn't matter how do you leave the mouse, so the direction doesn't matter. Why? Because I'm using a coordinate system. The coordinate, AutoCAD is linking 0, 0 to minus 20, 0. Hit enter. Then look, I'm not moving the mouse. I will provide the other coordinate, or the other point, which is 0, 10. So again, hashtag 0, comma 10. This will be the second point on the secondary axis. Hit enter. You'll have the same ellipse. But here I used coordinate system to make sure that the ellipse, center of the ellipse, is at origin and this point here. So if I check, we said how do you check? Simply click on the line, come over this point, you will see minus 20, 0. Come over this point, you will see 0, 10. And this basically the origin is 0, 0. This is another way that we can use this method to draw ellipse. Remember, center required, the name of its center, center required, and then one information on the primary axis, one information on the secondary axis. So what will be those information? It can be half length, it can be point of the end of the axis, the end point of the axis. For the secondary axis, similar, half length and the end point of the axis. One of them will be enough. Why? Because one information on the primary, one information on the secondary will be enough to draw ellipse with the center method. Procedure written here step by step in order to do it. Now in the next video we're going to talk about axis ends and how to use those information to draw ellipse.